What's going on, y'all? It's JD McCarthy. Today on the Hard Count, we're going to talk about how Michigan's offense will look different with JJ McCarthy at quarterback. Welcome into the Hard Count, the people's show for every single thing that you know and that you love about college football. It happens here on a daily basis. Nick Brake does the heavy lifting. You can help drive the show by subscribing to the channel. I would encourage you to do so. It is football season. It's always football season around here, but they're playing games right now. We want you along for the ride. We don't want you to miss a thing that we're doing here. We're doing a lot of fun stuff. Want you on this channel. Okay? JJ McCarthy was named the starting quarterback for Michigan after having a quote-unquote nearly flawless performance against Hawaii in week 2 of the season. Now, if you haven't heard how this whole thing went down, let me set the table a little bit. Jim Harbaugh goes into the season and says, hey, listen, we got 2 good quarterbacks. You got Cade McNamara, who's the vet, who won them a Big Ten title a season ago, who got them to college football playoff a season ago. Then you got the young gun, JJ McCarthy, who has ability pouring out of his ears, does a lot on the ground game, has a really live arm. So Jim Harbaugh just says, okay, here's the deal. Cade, you get the first game. JJ, you get the second game. Whoever plays the best is going to be our starter for week 3 against UConn. One thing leads to another. JJ McCarthy balls out of his mind, wins the job, and Jim Harbaugh says so in the post-game press conference from week 2 against Hawaii. He says JJ McCarthy is going to be our starter, more or less. That's what he said. So, naturally, anytime you change the centerpiece of your offense, the most important player on your team who touches the ball every single snap, the game looks a little bit different. Even more so, the offense is going to engineer a different way with a different engine in the car. So, when JJ McCarthy is at quarterback for Michigan, how will that impact what they do offensively? There's a couple of pieces I want to hit on. The first piece, in the run game. The run game is going to open up a lot for Michigan. And there's the obvious that his legs add to the game in terms of what he does off the zone read. We'll get to more of that in a second, but just the threat of him being able to pull the ball on a zone read, just the threat of what he could potentially do, the fact that Michigan can now maybe even call that against a defense means a lot to what they can do in the run game, because those linebackers and those safeties, they're not able to just key on the running backs anymore. They now have to worry about number 9 pulling it and getting around the edge. So what does that do? They're not able to trigger as quickly. What's a trigger? Well, essentially, when you see the ball, you go get the ball. And with these linebackers, they're going to have to be super disciplined with their eyes and make sure that they're not wrong. Because if they're wrong, JJ McCarthy's around the outside 60 yards for a touchdown. That's the threat that he now possesses. That's the threat this Michigan offense possesses with him at quarterback. As a whole, the defense just has to play even the slightest bit, a tad bit slower because of what he presents on that front. In the pass game, kind of piggybacking off of that, because of how multiple they're going to be able to be in the run game, because you have to worry about JJ McCarthy having the quarterback design run for him, you're going to be able to hit some more big plays over the top. And we saw that against Hawaii. Hawaii played really aggressive with their safeties. Hawaii, no disrespect to the Rainbow Warriors, is a lower caliber of competition than Michigan will play the rest of the year. But on that first touchdown, it was play action, and that safety triggered up extremely quickly. He was within the front 7 in terms of his depth at the snap of the football. And so what happened was safety triggers up. You got a fast guy on the outside. He runs a skinny post. He wins one-on-one, and there's nobody back there because he's worried about having to play the run with JJ McCarthy. So he pulls it out, throws deep with his talented arm, touchdown. And so obviously the ability is a big piece of it, but being able to have that challenge with the run game now sets with the pass game with the quarterback, because you have to worry even more about the run game than you did before, that's another advantage, another layer you can add to your offense. You just become more multiple. Now, getting to the actual ability of it, the fact that you have a quarterback that can pull it and go 60 yards like we just talked about, that's a huge element to the offense. Think about just short yardage in general, where previously maybe you would have to go with just a straight handoff. You can call an option play. You can call something to where it's play action and there's an RPO and you're able to Trust JJ. Say, hey, JJ, if that first read's not there, you can go. It's no knock on Cade McNamara. It's just a whole other element that JJ McCarthy has in his bag. So a lot of weapons on this offense. JJ McCarthy and his run game is going to free the ball up to get to them even more effectively and efficiently because of the defense and what they have to key on with him. Now, going back to what he possesses in the pass game, read you a quick stat. Last season, Cade McNamara passed the 17 yards per attempt mark once. One time. JJ McCarthy, in his very short time at Michigan as the starter, I mean, his first real start, his first one start he had against Hawaii, threw 19 yards per attempt. It's obvious that they're able to just stretch the ball better with him vertically, just from a number standpoint, but even more so, if you're just watching the game and you're watching Cade in the game and you're watching JJ in the game, the offense is called a different way. And so what that tells me is there is a certain level of confidence, a certain level of optimism that this staff has with JJ McCarthy at quarterback and when Cade McNamara is in the game. And Jim Harbaugh has said all the right things. He said we got 2 championship-level quarterbacks, which Cade McNamara has won a championship in the Big Ten for Michigan. But Cade McNamara, when he's in the game, they call it a different way. When JJ McCarthy was out there, they're going empty. They're calling a lot of deep routes down the field. They feel confident in him to call the vertical plays to where we trust him to push the ball downfield. We trust him to make good decisions. We think he's more consistent downfield is what that play calling is telling me. So as a whole, the Michigan offense is probably going to be more wide open. I think that's the hope that you have when you put JJ McCarthy at quarterback going forward. So what does this mean big picture for Michigan? For starters, I think it means you can win games different ways. We saw them do it in the tough, blue-collar, gritty fashion a year ago. Keep in mind, they had a lot of really good defensive players that are now in the NFL. So for Michigan, you maybe now feel better about your chances if you do get into a track meet. If it is a game where we have to score 50, we feel okay about that because of the stick of dynamite we now have at quarterback. The explosive plays should be higher from Michigan. So you can be more multiple in how you win games. When you don't have that fastball, when you're not able to just hand it off to Blake Corum or whoever it is back there, and depend on that offensive line, you have a counter to that. You have another pitch. In addition to that, I think it proves the point or even presses the issue that for Michigan, they can go 12-0. Now, Ohio State's going to have something to say about that. I'm not picking them to go 12-0 at this point in time, but I'm just saying they now have the capability, especially on offense, to go 12-0. Because last year it was more of a defensive-led football team. The offense did a lot of good things. Don't get it twisted. I mean, the points per game was phenomenal a season ago. But there were definitely times where you lean on that defense. You lean on them to make plays and sort of lead the charge for you. A lot of new faces. Junior Colson is a guy they feel really good about. They think he could be their best player on defense this year at Michigan, but there's a lot of new pieces around him. So as that's getting up to speed, not to say it won't be great, but as that's getting up to speed, you feel good about what you have on offense. You feel like, hey, if we let up a couple extra points, we have the offense to match with that firepower. And that's a dangerous thing for the rest of the country because everybody around the country was banking more or less on Michigan taking that step back defensively. If they take that step back defensively and stay the same on offense, I don't know that you are capable of having the same result that you had a year ago in terms of winning the Big Ten and getting to the college football playoff. Now with JJ McCarthy at quarterback, in theory, the offense takes a step forward. And as the defense finds itself, you got to feel good about what you have in Ann Arbor. So I'm excited to see what happens here with JJ McCarthy in this offense. They won't be tested for a while. They play UConn this coming Saturday, which no disrespect to Jim Moore and his program, but Michigan should have their way. But we'll see how this thing unfolds the rest of the season as they get further into Big Ten play and beyond. So that's it for us here on The Hard Count. We appreciate you tuning in. Subscribe to the channel. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at JDPakel. We're also on podcasts. We're there on Apple. We're there on Spotify. Wherever you get your podcast, you can listen to us. We're going to keep the party rolling. We will see y'all next time. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.